it that your happiness rests only in your child excelling? In fact, most of the time our children are incapable of getting 97%, so we never enjoy. Why must you restrict your happiness to only those occasions when the world caters to you? You see how you by your own volition shrink your happiness. If you say that only if I am catered to, I'll be happy, then what happens? Your happiness instantly shrinks. What's the population of the world? 8 billion, right? Your happiness shrinks to, at most, at best, 1 divided by 8 billion. But if you say, I expand my area of oneness to, let's say, my extended family, my brothers, sisters, their children, grandchildren, everyone, you end up with, being Indians, you end up with at least 25, 30 members. So instantly your happiness increases by 25 times. Suppose you say, I identify with the whole of Mumbai city. What is the population of the city? Sorry? 1 crore. Instantly your happiness increases by 1 crore. Up to 1 crore. Then you say, I will be happy when any Indian, I identify with all Indians. Any Indian anywhere in the world does well, and you are supremely happy as if it was your achievement. Your happiness increases by 1 billion. This is the advantage we have in India. Those poor Americans out there, the maximum their happiness increases is to 300 million. But truly, what a wonderful gift it is to enjoy somebody else's achievement, to revel, to rejoice in somebody else's happiness. That is what you get. So instead, what happens is you restrict your happiness. All you have to do is rise above petty, imaginary differences. The Gita says, the truth is that there are no differences, no separateness. There's only unity, there's only oneness. And if you don't see it, it is your imagination. And you're suffering because of your imagination. What a pity. So when we speak of love, he is not speaking of passive goodness, please. If at all there are people who are affectionate and loving, they are passive, which means they feel emotion and they act on that emotion without making an assessment of the people they're dealing with and then get taken for a ride. But what the Gita speaks of is the mind feels love. See, there are 2 entities within you, the mind and the intellect. The mind feels unconditional love, unlimited love. But the expression of that love is directed by the intellect. Your conduct depends upon the person with whom you are transacting. If the person that you are transacting with does not deserve the expression of your love, then you should not express it. You should have the love, but not express it. Like with a child that is throwing tantrums, a child that is playing truant, a child that is up to all kinds of tricks. The mother loves the child dearly, and that love does not dry up, even when the child is mischievous. But what is her expression? Her expression is one of harshness, discipline, curtness, which perhaps hurts the child at this moment. But even at that point, if you stop the mother and ask her, does this mean that you hate your child? No, I love my child dearly. I hate doing what I'm doing to the child, but I know it's in the child's interest, and therefore I'm doing it, right? At least that's what the mother should do. Whether she does it or not is a different thing. That's what we say. So if at all there are people who are loving and genuine, they unintelligently express that love towards all and sundry without taking into account their capacity to take the love. And anyone who doesn't have the capacity to receive the love abuses that love. Therefore it is that Oliver Goldsmith, when he speaks of the village preacher, he says, how does the village preacher conduct himself with the villagers? How does he express his affection with the villagers? He says, to them, his heart, his love, his griefs were given. But all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. And then he gives a beautiful example. He says, as some tall cliff, as a mountain, lifts its awful form, swells from the vale and midway leaves the storm, though round its breast the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on its head. So your head means intellect, must always be in contact with the sun above, Atman, with higher values of life. Your heart, at the heart level, the clouds are spread. The clouds of emotion come only up to the heart level. They don't cloud your thinking. But with us what happens is, if at all you feel an emotion, your head gets clouded. And when the head is clear, there is no emotion. It's very difficult. Try it. Between today and tomorrow, try feeling emotion and not allowing that emotion to come in the way of your clarity of thinking. Very, very difficult. Now let's take a look at our personality. If you identify with the body, you see maximum separateness, because even your loved ones, even your family members must necessarily be separate from you, unless you are conjoined twins. So there's maximum separateness. And to that extent, there is unhappiness. The moment you move from the body to the level of the mind, instantly your sphere of oneness expands to include all those whom you accept as part of you, as your family. So there is some relief. That's why you all want to go back home, right? Why? Because in the safe confine of the home, you feel a sense of oneness. Wherever you feel separateness, you have to be on guard, you have to be alert. It causes stress. You expand your feeling of oneness to the intellect and include, let's say, you have identified with a nation. Then it doesn't matter to you who the person is. As long as the person is an Indian, it doesn't matter whether he's educated or uneducated, rich or poor, Kashmiri or Gujarati or South Indian, and nothing matters to you. As long as the person is an Indian, your heart reaches out to the person. This is what Mahatma Gandhi did. Wherever he went, he had the capacity to identify with Indians, and this is what gives you power. Please understand that. The more you love, the more you have genuine concern for people, the greater is the power that you